Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new episode of Let Him Cook. Shenenka and I have been together since 2020 and in 2024 we got married.
Do you think 4 years will be enough time to figure everything out? හැබැයි ඇත්තටම කිව්වොත් ගොඩක් දේවල් complicated වුණා අපි දෙනාගේ ආගම් දෙක නිසා.
Now, neither of us are super religious and we made sure we were on the same page about that from the very beginning.
But as the wedding approached, it became clear just how many rules, restrictions and expectations both religions had for us.
A pressure එක අපි expect කරපු නැති දෙයක්. From rules about conversion to conflicting family expectations, it was a lot. But we're here, still alive.
So today, we're gonna share with you 5 lessons we've learned from having an interfaith marriage. The first lesson we've learned is that you must communicate openly. අපි wedding එක plan කරන්න කලින් ශෙහානුයි මමයි අනිත් couples වගේම wedding එකක් ගැන ගොඩක් දේවල් කතා කරා. ඒ දේවල් පොඩි දේවල් අපි ඒ දේවල් කතා කරේ අපේ relationship එකේ මුල් කාලෙදිම. I remember Shehan saying he wanted to get a Muslim marriage certificate and I always dreamt of having a church wedding. ඒ වුණාට අපි ඉස්සර ඒ දේවල් ගැන කතා කරලා තිබ්බට අපි ඒව ගැන ගොඩක් deeply හිතන්න ගියේ නෑ. අපිට හිතුණා ඒ දේවල් කතා කරන්න අපේ relationship එක ගොඩක් අලුත් වැඩි. අපි දැම්ම මේ ගැන ඒ දේවල් ගැන worry වෙන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ කියලා. අවුරුදු 4කට පස්සේ අපි අපේ wedding එක plan කරලා තමයි අපිට තේරුනේ wedding එකක් plan කරන එක ගොඩක් simple process එකක් නෙමෙයි කියලා. When we began speaking to relevant people, we found out that getting a Muslim marriage certificate in Sri Lanka isn't possible unless I convert. අනික් පැත්තෙන් church wedding එකක් ගන්නවා නම් ඒකට වෙනම restrictions ගොඩක් තිබ්බා. Mainly because Shehan isn't of the same faith. So yeah, 4 years of imaginary wedding planning, and when it came to the actual planning, we felt stuck and honestly stressed out. Choosing one religion meant compromising the other, and that felt unfair. We didn't want either of us or our families to feel like we were losing a part of ourselves just to get married. අපිට ගොඩාක් දේවල් කතා කරන්න වුණා. අන්තිම solution එකක් හොයාගන්න ඒක අපිට ගොඩක් ලේසි වුණේ නැහැ. So what did we do? We decided to go neutral. A civil marriage allowed us to celebrate our union without forcing anyone to do anything they didn't like. No stress, no drama, it was just us. මට මතකයි ශෙහානුයි මමයි marriage certificate එක sign කළා register office එකකින් එළියට එද්දී we felt so relieved and at peace. අනික ඒ process එක හරිම quick, very simple. ඒ process එක අපි දෙන්න ගැන විතරයි. And that's exactly what we wanted. Sometimes the middle ground is the best ground. Going neutral was the best decision we made. So, moral of the story: talk early, talk deeply, and talk often. අපසට හැරලා බලද්දී දෙන්න තේරුම් ගත දෙයක් තමයි ආදරය කියන්නේ. හැමදේම positive දේවල් විතරක් නෙමෙයි. ආදරය කියන්නේ you also have to face uncomfortable conversations long before you're forced to. අපිට තිබ්බා අවුරුදු 4ක් අපේ wedding එක ගැන අපේ wedding එක කොයි වගේ වෙයිද කියනවා ගැන කතා බහ කරන්න. හැබැයි අපි ඒ conversations හරියට fantasy එකක් වගේ ඒ අවස්ථාවේ එනකම්ම තියාගෙන හිටියා. ඒ කියන්නේ අන්තිම මොහොත වෙනකම්ම තියාගෙන හිටියා. And I think that's the thing about communication. It's not just about sharing dreams, it's about unpacking differences. It's about asking hard questions even when you don't know the answer yet. If we had opened up those conversations earlier, asked the right questions and done the homework sooner, we could have saved ourselves a lot of stress and heartache. පුළුවන් තරම් කලින් කතා කරන එක, whether it's faith, whether it's about family, නැත්නම් ඔයගලන්ගේ future එක ගැන පුළුවන් තරම් කලින් කතා කරන එක ගොඩක් හොඳයි. Speak up, listen closely, and don't leave hard talks for later, because later might come with a deadline.
The second lesson is that you must take control. Here's the thing, parents will always have their own ideas for your wedding. Naturally, my parents being Muslim had their own expectations, and Shenenka's parents being Christian had theirs. And even though neither of us are deeply religious, we knew that for our families, just like any Sri Lankan family, getting their way meant everything. Godak moments tibuna api dennata theruna api dennawa depattata adinawa kiyala. Eka pawulakata eka vidiyakata one, tawa pawulakata tawa vidiyakata one. And after endless conversations, Shenenka and I actively made a choice to go with the civil marriage. We chose peace over pressure, a civil ceremony over a conflict. It wasn't what everyone had imagined, but it was what we needed to feel grounded, authentic and true to ourselves. Api amma තාත්තා කියපු දේවල් ඇහුවා. At the end of the day, it was our marriage. So we had to take control and make the decisions ourselves. And guess what? Everyone adjusted. It wasn't easy, but they came around. The lesson here is that if you're mature enough to get married, then you have to be mature enough to take control. Wedding එකක් plan කරනවා කියන දේ, especially ආගම් දෙකක් වුණාම, it can become a battleground of expectations. But you have to remember, your wedding is not a show for others. It's something much deeper. You don't need to disrespect your families to honor your relationship. But you do need to be brave enough to draw the line between tradition and what actually works for you. Take ownership, set boundaries, and make decisions that reflect your truth, not just your family's comfort. මොකද මේක ඔයාගේ ජීවිතේ, ඔයාගේ ආදරේ, ඔයාගේ කතාව.
This video is brought to you by Fluencer, Sri Lanka's influencer marketplace, helping businesses and influencers connect and collaborate.
The next lesson is that you must be willing to compromise. This one was especially hard for me. Mama පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳලා මගේ හීනයක් තමයි church wedding එකක් ගන්න එක. මගේ ඔළුවේ picture එකක් තිබ්බා. මම සුදු ගාමක් ඇඳලා like wedding dress එකක් ඇඳලා තාත්තිත් එක්ක I'm walking down the aisle and you know the choir is singing and everyone's looking at me and I'm just walking and Shehan's at the altar. You know maybe he's crying and whatnot. මම හිතන්නේ ඒක ආගමට වඩා මට මොහොමඩ එක තමයි වැදගත් උනේ because it just felt like a fairy tale. මගේ හිතේ තිබ්බ ඒ dream එක මම ගොඩාක් අවුරුදු ගාණක් මගේ වෙඩින් එක දවස වෙඩින් එක plan කරද්දී වෙඩින් එක අන්තිම මොහොත වෙනකන් උත් that's what I wanted to do and that's something that I carried for so long. ඒක ශහන් දැනගෙන හිටියා from the beginning and he was willing to try and make that dream happen for me. He even started looking into what it would take to have a church ceremony, asking around, reading up on the process. It meant a lot. හැබැයි අපි ඒක ගැන හොයන්න ගොඩක් දේවල් complicate වුණා. There were strict rules about interfaith marriages. Paperwork, permission, and in some cases even conversion requirements. Some churches wouldn't even consider it unless both partners were the same faith. It started to feel less like a celebration and more like a bureaucratic obstacle course. Soon I realized that I had been chasing a version of my dream that didn't really exist anymore. At least not in the way that I thought I had to. So I had to let that dream go. මට දුක හිතුණාද මං මෙච්චර කාලයක් පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳලා මගේ තිබ්බ dream එකක් අතාරින්න ගොඩක් දුක හිතුණා. But at some point I had to ask myself what's more important, the picture I had in my head or the peace I wanted in my life. මගේ තිබ ඩ්‍රීම් එක මට චර්ච් එකක බඳින්න ඕන තිබ ඒ ආසාව අතාරින එක මම හිතන්නේ නැහැ මගේ ඩ්‍රීම් එකක් give up කරා කියලා මං හිතන්නේ I took a step and I felt like I was growing up. And in doing so, I made space for something more real, our marriage. I gained peace, we gained clarity, and we moved forward. Shehan's willingness to try and my willingness to release made all the difference. Because the truth is, love is not about winning. It's about balancing. It's about looking what really matters and being willing to meet each other halfway. Kasaadayak ඇතුළතදී, especially ආගම් දෙකක් එකතු වෙන තැනකදී අපි ගොඩාක් දේවල් වලට මුහුණ දෙනවා. ඒ තැන් වලදී you can either fight for control or choose to bend with grace.
And that brings us to lesson number 4. Do your own research. When you're in an interfaith relationship, or honestly even just getting married in general, the amount of advice you get is wild. And most of it unsolicited. අපිට හිටියා නෑදෑයෝ, යාළුවෝ, කවදාකවත් කතා කරලා නැති ඔහේන අංකල් ආන්ටිලා එකපාරට අපිට ඇඩ්වයිස් දෙනවා. සමහරක් අය අපිට කිව්වා අපි කන්වර්ට් වුණේ නැත්නම් මේ වෙඩින් එක වැලිඩ් වෙන්නේ නැති වෙයි කියලා. සමහරක් අය කිව්වා මාව ඇක්සෙප්ට් වෙන්න නැති වෙයි කියලා කමියුනිටි එකේ ඇතුළේ. තවත් අය කිව්වා it's illegal to marry across religions in Sri Lanka without conversion. Spoiler alert, it's not. It got to a point where every conversation made us feel more confused than the last. එතකොට තමයි අපිට තේරුනේ we couldn't outsource our decisions to other people's opinions, even if they meant well. අපිට නැවතිලා එක ස්ටෙප් එකක් පිටිපස්සට අරගෙන we said, okay, let's find out the actual facts. So we started doing our own research. We spoke to legal experts, religious leaders we trusted, and even couples who had been through similar situations, and we read the actual laws. We asked questions, and we triple-checked everything we were told. It took time, but slowly we began to separate myth from reality. And guess what? So many of the so-called rules people swore by, they weren't even real. They were based on hearsay, tradition, or fear, not law. Doing our own research gave us clarity, and clarity gave us confidence. It helped us make better decisions instead of reactive ones. The moral of the story? Do your own research. ගොඩක් අය කියයි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ opinions කොහොමද ඔයාගේ marriage එක වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. But you can't make life-changing decisions based on second-hand stories or emotional guilt trips. ඔයාම responsibility එකක් ගන්න ඕනේ for you to find out what's true. Because at the end of the day, you are the one who has to live with the outcome. ඔයාගේ නෑදෑයෝ, uncle, aunties ලා කවුරුත් නෙමෙයි.
And finally, the last lesson is to block out the noise. අපි දෙන්න හැමෝම කියන දේවල් අහලා හිටියනම් අපි දෙන්න සමහරක් වෙලාවට රෙජිස්ටර් ඔෆිස් එක ගාවටවත් යන්නේ නැති වෙයි.
From the moment we announced our engagement, the opinions came flooding in. Some were loud, some were subtle, some were just dressed up as concerns.
හැමෝටම ලොකු අදහසක් තිබ්බා අපි දෙන්න මොනවද කරන්න ඕනේ නැත්ද කියලා. සමහරක් ඒවා තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඇත්තටම පල්ලිය බඳින්නේ නැද්ද?
Won't your marriage be meaningless without God involved?
ඔයගලගේ පවුල් කමක් නැද්ද පල්ලිය බඳින්නේ නැති එක නැත්නම් මුස්ලිම් විදියට කරන්නේ නැති එක ගැන?
Isn't that disrespectful to your culture?
ඔයගලගේ මැරේජ් එක ලීගල්ද ඔයා කන්වර්ට් වුණේ නැත්තම්?
At first we tried to listen. We nodded politely, smiled, took it all in, thinking we could just filter out the useful bits and ignore the rest. It felt like our relationship was being hijacked by everyone else's fears, biases and expectations. And the worst part is that the noise can start to sound like the truth, especially when it comes from people you love and respect.
අපි දෙන්නට සෑහෙන මතක් කරන්න ඕන අපි දෙන්නට මේ මැරේජ් එක අපි දෙන්න ගැන කියලා. මේ මැරේජ් එක අපේ extended family එකවත් අපේ religious community වත් අපි social media එකේ අපි දකින දේවල්වත් අපේ යාළුවන්ගේවත් marriage එක නෙමෙයි මේක අපේ දවස.
So we decided to draw the line. We stopped opening up to people who made us feel small or ashamed for making our own choices, and we created boundaries. The moral of the story is that you must protect your peace.
තමන් වෙනස් දෙයක් කරන්න යද්දී ඔයාට සමාජයෙන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ දාන්න මිනිස්සුන්ගෙන් ගොඩාක් opinions එයි.
But if you want to build a marriage that actually works, you have to shut the door on that noise.
Because at the end of the day ඔයයි වගේ පාර්ට්නර් තමයි උදේට නැගිටලා මේ මැරේජ් එකේ ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. Everyone else is just background static.
And there you have it. 5 lessons from an interfaith marriage. They aren't easy, but as cheesy as it sounds, they're worth it when you're with the right person.
හැබැයි මතක තියාගන්න අපි දෙන්නගේ experience එක අනුව ඔයගලන්ට දේවල් පහක් මෙතන කිව්වට කියන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයගලන්ගේ ජීවිතය අනුව ඔයගලන්ගුත් අපි දෙන්න කියපු දේම follow කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. මොකද එකිනෙකාගේ circumstances වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ හින්දා තමන්ට unique විදිහට තමන් හිතන විදිහට අපි දෙන්නගේ මොන හරි valuable දෙයක් ඔයගලන්ට ගන්න. පුළුවන් නම් එකකින් අරගෙන තමන්ගේ පාත් එක ඔයාගේ පාර්ට්නර්ත් එක්ක හදාගන්න.
We hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please do drop a comment, and see you on the next one.